Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. We've got you guys an update on massive multi-day severe weather outbreak that is currently moving across the Midwestern United States. We've got a lot of things to talk about in this video, breaking down what's going to be happening with the severe weather in the next few days, as well as what's going on in the tropics, and what we could be shaping up to see for our upcoming hurricane season. I've got Davis here joining me on the show. Hey, everybody.
Hello, I'm here today.
Yep. All right. So, just starting out here with your current radar, you can see you got a pretty nasty storm system that's currently moving across the upper Midwest. At this point, we've already had multiple tornadoes. We had a wedge tornado in Iowa today. Waiting to hear reports from that, but there was a confirmed large and dangerous tornado in Iowa today. Many other tornadoes occurred in the United States today, but this is your classic comma shaped, just like storm system here. This is negatively tilted, but you can see that inside of your warm sector, these are still some nasty storms that are flying across portions of Illinois, down all the way into like the boot heel of Missouri, across portions of Arkansas and Tennessee. That's something that you're gonna have to watch out for as these storms continue to Ohio. So that's all we got with that. Some non-severe storms or just some light to heavy rainfall moving across portions of like the Dakotas into Minnesota and Wisconsin. So it's really down here in the warm sector where all the juicy stuff in the atmosphere is. That's where you're probably going to have the higher chance of seeing severe weather. So just leaving the radar, what do you think about this going on just in general right now, Davis?
Yeah, so obviously it was much more intense earlier, but at the time of filming, I mean, we're still getting severe thunderstorm warnings out of this. We're still getting tornado warnings out of this, even. And I'm not even in the most intense part of it. I'm down in kind of central, southeastern Illinois. And the thunder, I mean, there's so much of it. There's so many lightning strikes, incredibly heavy rainfall. So this system is still definitely packing a punch to lots of people in the Midwest, specifically pretty much just down to Illinois and Wisconsin at this point.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because we also do have a similar level of threat for severe weather even into tomorrow, which obviously we'll have to talk about. But it's just been these days of like nonstop severe weather. And this is why we had those like 4 or 5 day in a row enhanced risks. And then we have a second round of enhanced risks. So it's just pretty crazy to see the back to back to back kind of severe setups. All right. So let's take a look at your current alerts. You can see here we go. The alerts are definitely not as widespread, but you can see that we still have a good chunk of northeastern Illinois in the yellow shade. That is where you have the tornado watch. This is out to, I believe, 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. This is going out for up to 70-mile-per-hour winds, golf ball, or I think it might even be tennis ball size hail. Davis will have to remind me at the end of recording this
Uh,
video.
this was a ping pong ball size hail. This one was.
Oh, ping pong ball. Yeah, so I was thinking of a different watch. But
There was
anyways,
one earlier today that was tennis ball, I'm pretty sure.
yes. But very large hail, destructive winds, and a few tornadoes are likely with this system. There is actually still a rotating thunderstorm out there that is tornado warned into southern Wisconsin. But if you ever look on this map and you see the red boxes, those are tornado warnings. Some of them are most of them are probably just radar indicated, but some of them are observed, meaning that there is a confirmed tornado on the ground. But anyways, in this kind of like brownish tan shade, you have wind advisories. This is going out for portions of eastern Missouri down through south central Illinois. I believe this does include Davis. So
It does. It has been so windy out there today.
yeah, I mean this is why the National Weather Service issues these kind of alerts. And you also do have a little sliver of northeastern Arkansas that's included in this wind advisory. All right, you can see in this pink shade, this like hot pink shade, it's pretty scattered, so I'm not going to go through all these specific areas, but that's where you have red flag warnings. So anybody inside of these like pink shades and right, like for example, right here in the extreme northern Texas, that's where we have red flag warnings, where you could expect very critical fire danger conditions, meaning that if you are messing with something flammable outside, which you should definitely not be, but if you are doing something that could potentially like just light a fire outside, you don't want to do that because these are prime time conditions for wildfires to start and wildfires to spread. You put together dry and windy conditions because all around here are on the backside of the system. I mean, there's so many different parts that are playing into this. You have dry conditions because there was that nasty dry line that swept these storms across the southern plains. So that's going to bring in the dry air. You need dry air for this. But you got windy air. This is a lot of cold air that's coming in on the backside of the storm system. This is that cold front that's punching through. And with these very strong negatively tilted troughs, you're going to get very strong winds on the backside of the storm system. So not only the front side, but the backside. So that's why we have high wind warnings just a few miles to the north here of the panhandle of Oklahoma in the red flag warning. This is where you have high wind warnings for northwestern Kansas into southwestern Nebraska. That is definitely something that could not only increase the fire risk, but also could knock out some power. So please be sure that you are using extra caution, especially when on those roadways. All right, you have some scattered winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings out there into the upper elevations of the northwest. Or you can see on the west coast, really up between Oregon and Wisconsin, you have in the lighter blue shade, you have frost advisories, and then in the dark purple shade, you have freeze warnings. So that basically means that overnight you're going to get a pretty nasty drop in those temperatures, and so any standing body, or not, I shouldn't say body, but any standing water like a puddle or just any, like, maybe if you leave like a bucket of water for some reason outside, that is most likely going to freeze, especially if you're inside of the freeze warning. So that's definitely just something that you need to make sure that you are aware of. All right. So going back here, not this isn't really the radar, but we're looking at satellite right here, and I just wanted to show you this because we're just taking this storm as an example of a classic severe weather setup negatively tilted trough. You have that classic comma shaped hook echo. All right, or that's what I would call a hook echo here. You can see that is very well defined. So this is the cold dry air that's coming on the backside. I'm gonna break down the whole setup here for you guys. This is the cold air, the cold dry air coming down on the backside. This is moving swiftly through the mountainous region. You can see that you have barely any convection going on back here because you just have nothing to deal with. But this is your warm sector. You'll have surging warm air that the storm is pulling up from the Gulf of Mexico. This is in front of these storms that are able to pop off and fire across this region. That's where you see these high cloud tops. This is where you kind of see like the bubbling kind of look to the storms, which is pretty much happening right now into Illinois, Wisconsin, down into like Missouri. That's where you have the severe thunderstorms forming. So just breaking down all of this, what would you have to say about this, Davis?
I mean, you pretty much explained everything nearly perfectly. That severe threat is going to continue here throughout the evening time hours, maybe into the early nighttime hours for a few spots there, but you can kind of see that the system is kind of breaking up, getting a little bit weaker. But I mean, yeah, other than that, you covered that pretty much everything that I would have said. I feel like.
Yeah. And also keep in mind that I'm pretty sure this is actually a shortwave trough that is ejecting across northern Mexico into southern Texas. So this is also helping to push this storm off to the east. So it's a lot of different things that get put together. And they also put together just the dynamics and the thermodynamics, and that's what basically gets you these severe weather events, and in this case, severe weather outbreaks. All right. So, we're going to give you guys your outlook for the rest of tonight into tomorrow so everyone can stay safe because we're not done with this yet, but we're definitely through the worst of it, I would say. So we're out of the thick of it right now. All right, but we're at about 9:30 as of the filming of this video. So this is basically what you saw on your radar. You had storms that were producing damaging wind gusts and tornadoes and large hail stretching really all the way up from Wisconsin down through portions of northern Illinois and down into Missouri, where these storms don't look as impressive. But really, the severe storms are into northern Illinois. I would say some could be into central and southern portions of Wisconsin. All right. I don't. Did I say Wisconsin earlier? I'm not sure. But anyways,
I
yeah,
don't know.
we have Wisconsin up here getting some severe storms and portions of northern Illinois. So that's as of right now. Let's continue this into tonight. We'll get to about 4 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. Look how much these storms just break apart. This storm is falling apart like most storms do as they move off to the east. Usually they will start to slow down. But remember, the warm sector is so huge, and we have so much like cape and just a lot of things that basically just help thunderstorms build. It just kind of uh, helps the storm rebound and produce another day of severe weather. But this is 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so with the early morning cooling hours and just the storm weakening itself, you're not going to have that much activity at this point, but you may still have some non-severe storms moving across, let's say, really the Great Lakes in between Michigan and Wisconsin. All right. And that's going to be just to the east of your low pressure center, which is right here moving across really the border of southern Minnesota into western Wisconsin. All right. So let's take this out until all the way really about 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then this really does not look that organized to me, but you have a line of storms stretching really all the way up from the far west coast of Michigan all the way down through Indiana. Yes, some of these could be supercells that are rotating. Some of them could end up be tornado producers, but I do think that we're gonna have a weakening system, so it's gonna be tough for these to produce tornadoes. So I would say damaging large hail and damaging wind gusts are gonna be the main threat. Just looking at these storms. But Davis, what do you think? Just looking at the characteristics of these storms.
So, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think that maybe an isolated tornado could pop up in there somewhere, but I'm honestly not buying that. I would like to point out the NAM was almost spot on, at least for right now. You're talking about, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, they're getting all those severe storms. That's what the NAM was painting hours ago, and that is almost exactly what actually happened, right? We've got no severe warnings right now, except for the ones up in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. So the NAM is a very reliable model. So if something like this were to play out, I mean, honestly, that would not surprise me. Again, this is not going to be a major tornado threat, or it's not going to be anything like what we had today or yesterday, even. All right, it's just going to be mainly damaging to destructive winds, and then also maybe some isolated large hail up to 2 inches in diameter. It's kind of too early out to talk about exact sizes, but if I just had to guess, that's kind of what I would say. But yeah.
Yeah, and so going back to what you said about the NAM being pretty on spot, I totally agree with you. That's basically why in all of my updates, I always look at the NAM 3 kilometer model because it's high resolution, so it's almost like an animated radar, but it's pretty accurate. So it's pretty good to look at storms in the short term, but that means that we're looking at a very reliable model run because specifically this is the 18Z run, which is basically the overnight or the evening and overnight model run. And 18Z runs come out for every model, but this one is for the NAM. So the 18Z NAM is looking very reliable. So this information, once again, is most likely, I would say, like, I mean, obviously we don't really care about estimating, but I would say it's about 75% chance that this is going to be pretty accurate and pretty close to what the future radar will actually look like by 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But this line of storms is producing strong thunderstorms that could be rotating. Some may drop like an isolated, brief, weak tornado, maybe like a skinny rope, but I don't expect any crazy wedge tornado to rip across this area. So you got to keep in mind that there's still a threat for tornadoes. It's just not. I don't think it's going to be nearly as high as it was today. Kind of going back to what Davis said, but we take this out to the rest of the afternoon. These storms do get pretty strong over Ohio. This is okay. This is looking more like a tornado producing line of storms, especially down here into Ohio. I know you guys have been so busy with severe weather, but this is another real deal chance, and you'll see what I mean on the SPC. But we'll click for sounding. Okay, you have some broad rotation on this photograph here. This is your instability. You want this line to be very shaky. You want it to go like all over the place. You can see as soon as we get up like a few 100 feet in the air, we go immediately over here, over here, over here. So I mean, it's complicated, and I myself haven't really completely understood this. But you just want to see this kind of be like a zigzag, and you see that instability really ramping up just as you go a little bit up in the atmosphere. Um, and you have a temperature at 66 degrees, so you have, I wouldn't say tropical, but you have warm conditions. You have some decent capes, so this is a pretty good sounding for tornadoes and for severe thunderstorms in general. This is going to be the late evening hours of tomorrow, where I think tornadoes are a big possibility across really southeastern Michigan into west central Ohio. Any one of these supercells could definitely be spinning enough, uh, you know, to produce a tornado, and we obviously don't know how strong that tornado may be. All right, but I'm just saying it's an overall higher chance than what we see rather back here into like Indiana and Western Michigan. Right, and so that's gonna be right around 6 p.m. before that line starts to fall apart. And that's gonna be pretty much it. But then you get a secondary low that kind of sweeps through. It brings some strong thunderstorms. I wouldn't say they're gonna be anything crazy, but these could definitely produce damaged wind gusts, isolated large hail. I wouldn't expect any really tornadoes with this, but it will definitely bring some strong storms throughout Illinois. Here you can see central and northern Missouri, and then maybe all the way into Indiana and Ohio. But that's definitely not something you need to worry about as much. You know, just going back to this. All right. And the reason why you don't really need to be that worried is because you have this oncoming cold front, this dry air, the dew points are going to be very low. So it's just not a very healthy environment for severe weather with that second storm coming in. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. So we go over to the SPC. All right. This is your day one outlook. They have officially dropped the enhanced risk. So now we just have a slight risk for the rest of tonight to get through. This includes basically southern Michigan, southern Wisconsin down through all of Illinois, pretty far in eastern Missouri, and then extreme eastern Iowa. You have a total population of just over 20 million people, so a lot of major cities in the way of this. You still have a 5% tornado threat, so there's still a decent chance for seeing a tornado anywhere inside of that brownish red shade. That's a 5% chance of seeing an EF2 to EF5, that's hatched. This is not hatched, so this is just a 5% chance of seeing any tornado within 25 miles of a point. All right, damage wind threat, you only have a 15% chance, so it's not too high, but that's in the yellow shade. That's including the same area as the slight risk, and then the hail threat is also up to a 15% chance. That's also including the same area as the slight risk. All right, we go to day 2, and they actually did drop the enhanced risk. I didn't realize that. Apologize about that, but they did drop the enhanced risk, so now we are just left with a slight risk, level 2 out of 5. So just don't ignore this because it's elevated slightly, but it's definitely not anything too crazy. So this is basically just going to be the remnants of those supercells that are currently moving along with this storm system. So this is driven by a 5% tornado threat in the red shade. If I were the SPC, okay, I would drop this just a little bit farther to the south. But this is in the general vicinity, the general area of where the NAM was showing a potential for those supercells forming across west central Ohio. So that's pretty close to where I kind of expected the most activity. But the SPC wants this a little bit farther to the north, and it's a pretty small and condensed area. I would watch this area. I do think that this is going to be an area to watch for rotating supercells. But that is a 5% uh, chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a point in the reddish brown shade. In the green shade, you have a 2% chance of seeing a tornado. In the wind department, you have a 15% chance of seeing damaged wind gusts. In the yellow shade, within 25 miles of a point. In the brownish red shade, you have a 5% chance of seeing damaged wind gusts. All right, and then the hail threat, you have 2 areas. It's because of the beginning stages of that second system. That's a 5%. 5% in the brownish red shade. In the yellow shade, you have a 15% slight risk for seeing large hail. I mean, that's how I would put it, slight risk, but other people, I don't know about Davis film, but other people, I guess, wouldn't call it a slight risk. But anyways, we go to the day 3 outlook. This is just, for these general thunderstorms, these potentially severe storms are going to be moving through the area. Farther south than I would expect too, so I would shift things farther north with this. But you do have a slight risk going up, really from extreme northeastern Texas all the way through Arkansas, western Tennessee, and southern Illinois. All right, that's also a 15% chance. So we take a look just at your. Oh, sorry, forgot to mention Davis. Davis, what are your thoughts on that SPC outlook? Just day 1 to day 3, in general.
Okay, so obviously we got today. All right, we still have that slight risk of severe weather. I think that's definitely warranted. In fact, as of recording, I just pulled up Radar Omega for just a second there, and we did actually get a new tornado warning at this point. So obviously, severe storms are still occurring. I wouldn't rely on an isolated brief tornado for the rest of the night. So I don't think having a slight risk tonight is that ridiculous. Going into tomorrow, this is where it gets really interesting. All right, you see that we were talking about how reliable the NAM is, and we now also have the SPC, not in the exact same area of forecasts, all right? The SPC has it a little bit further up into northern Ohio, while the NAM is kind of talking about central Ohio. But now that you have two reliable sources telling you that there are going to be likely severe storms somewhere in that area tomorrow, it should make you want to make sure that you are starting to get prepared for potential severe weather tomorrow. As they say, don't be scared, be prepared. Have a tornado action plan in place. All right, there's likely not going to be anything major. All right, and even if there is anything major, there's a very small chance that it actually happens in your town. But in case it does happen in your town, you're going to want to wish that you were prepared. So make sure that you do know where you're going to go if there is a tornado warning or something like that. All right, Thursday, it's still kind of a curveball. I really don't know at this point. We're still not too certain on all the specifics. Obviously, the SPC does not issue specific outlooks for like specific threats on the day 3 outlook, but I think that's mainly going to be damaging wind and large hail driven, maybe an isolated tornado threat in there.
Very well said. I totally agree with you on that. All right. So we look at the GFS for your outlook for the rest of April. I love talking about outlooks for like the rest of the month, the next 2 weeks. I just love going through the seasons and just hanging with you guys. So we'll check back here at things. It's spring. It's severe weather season. We're feeling great. All right. At least I'm feeling great. I don't know about Davis, but it's getting
I'm
warm
feeling great.
outside. It's sunny outside. All right. But as they say, I don't know. It's like April showers, May flowers, or something like that. Maybe it's the
Yeah.
other way around. Anyways, but yeah, it's spring. All right. And so I mean, it's been a long one for winter, but I think starting like even like a few weeks ago, we're just gonna start seeing less and less snow, and we're gonna be able to say goodbye to that wet and soggy snow because the entire world has been heating up, so we've just been seeing less snow in general during the winters. But now we can get back to summer and enjoy that summer sun. But anyways, let's get going with your April outlook. This is basically mid-April that we're at now, but that's your storm system moving out. Here comes your second low that's kind of moving across the area. That's what the GFS is showing, or sorry, the SPC is showing. I can see that now. I think you have the strongest storms up into central Illinois, but you see the SPC was highlighting this pretty much same exact area in the slight risk. It's right into here. All right, so that's a pretty good job on the SPC matching up with the GFS. So that also shows that the GFS 18Z is looking pretty reliable, at least for the short term. So after that, what do you get? You get pretty much like a zonal flow because you don't have anything else that's really going on out here. So pretty boring weather, and it means it's gonna be pretty nice outside. That's pretty good. But whenever you get a disturbance in the jet stream or any energy, you always have a shot at seeing some severe weather or any just type of storm in general. But you can see we do have some thunderstorms that could be moving through southern Texas, and you see how these are like red and even some pink in there. That means you're going to get nasty like hail and potentially some supercells. So I would watch out for that around April 21st. This is on Sunday. There's a chance for a potential severe weather event in the southern Texas, but obviously we don't know much about that right now. We can't really tell. I can't really tell you guys the specifics on this. I'm just saying that if the GFS continues to show this, there's a pretty good signal for a severe weather event down into southern Texas. So going back to the 12Z, there it is again. So there is an ongoing signal on the GFS for a potential severe weather event in Texas right around the 21st, which should be Sunday. All right, so after that, what happens? Well, you have high pressure that's kind of trying to block everything, but here comes like almost a clipper, but except it's not cold enough for snow. So you get a clipper, an upper level low that just brings rain across the Midwest, kind of a nasty storm system. And it tries to move in the Northeast, and it kind of gets swept up in the jet stream flow. But you get a big dip in the jet stream, and the cold air returns. So it's looking like late April, maybe a cold one, and that is going to be pretty annoying. And I just said it's warm outside, it's sunny outside, but that may not actually be the case for a lot of people in the next week, week and a half. And then look at this. We might have just changed patterns. Look at this. We go from a zonal flow on April 19th to 20th. We take this out to like April 22nd. And now you have a crazy jet stream. And if my thing on Zoom would go down, I can draw here, you can see we have a massive, tall, spiking ridge, and then a dip in the jet stream. This is what you'd call a active jet stream that would support storms to form because you have cold air coming down from Canada, spilling into the northern tier of the United States with warm air and high dew points and moist air that's just surging up into the southern United States and then the west as well. All right, so I'm gonna stop there for the April outlook. So Davis, what do you think that we're gonna see just in general in the next week and a half or so, going forward into April?
I mean, April, it's been relatively crazy so far this year, right? All right, we've gotten several strong tornadoes, some big old tornado outbreaks, all right? But April is like severe weather season, all right? It doesn't get any crazier than April, at least here in the United States for the most part when it comes to severe weather. And I feel like we haven't had anything like that yet. So I feel like by the end of April, I'm expecting at least one more big tornado outbreak. I don't want to make it sound like I'm hoping that happens. All right, I really don't. I'm just saying, I don't think that we're done with April severe weather. I really don't. I think that we're gonna get.
Hold up, I think he's glitching. All right, so Davis just glitched out. Hopefully he'll be back with us soon.
Can you
Um,
not hear me?
I can. All right, we can hear you. Sorry guys, that was just a like a blooper or something. Davis cut out. Um, so basically, what he was saying is he's expecting another significant severe weather event within now and right around the end of April. I agree with him because April's been notorious for uh, big time severe weather events, and some years, a lot of years, it's been the biggest outbreaks of the year. Obviously, last year our biggest one was the March 31st severe weather and tornado outbreak. We had the double high risk. That was March 31st. So you could count that as an April severe weather event. And April came early this year, just because of how the calendar is working. So if you kind of put it together, it kind of seems like those two kind of like dates just line up together. So overall, it is severe weather season. So these things will happen. It's just been crazy active with just the amount of intense severe weather days in a row. All right. But we're going to check in now on the tropics. All right. So hurricane season is also coming up. We're basically checking in on the entire weather that you could think of in the United States. We're talking about severe weather, potential snow for some in the very far northern tier of the United States, potentially. Colder weather, warm weather, and now the tropics. So, as you may know, all right, we are expected to go into a La Nina as we go into the spring and summer. And so right now we still do have a weak El Nino, and we're just basically looking at the weekly sea surface temperature changes here with these anomalies, and we're going to be looking in the equatorial Pacific. This is where El Nino and La Nina occurs. You can see, and you still do have a very small portion of the Pacific that's in this like in these warmer colors. This is where you still have above average sea surface temperatures. That is where you were looking for in El Nino. So we still have some signs of an El Nino staying with us. But look at this. La Nina is making a comeback. We have a broad area. The majority of the equatorial Pacific is experiencing well below average sea surface temperatures. So that means that La Nina is definitely trying to take over El Nino there. And it almost looks like the time that we were expecting to have a neutral phase, it almost seems like that time frame is closing because it just looks like La Nina is really gonna open the doors and just roar. I think La Nina is just gonna come in very quickly, and it's just gonna start up as we get into summer. But then also going back to the Atlantic, you're probably thinking like, what is this? This is probably like this has got to be like an anomaly from 20 years ago. Well, it's not. This is actually the anomaly from today. We do not have record-breaking sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic, thank God. But for the past like week or so, I think the Atlantic waters have slowly started to cool back down. So this does not mean I'm saying that we're not going to get a active hurricane season. I'm just saying that there are signs of the waters in the Atlantic just not being crazy hot. But remember, these waters are still like 70 to 80 degrees, so these still are ridiculously warm sea surface temperatures. It's um just amazing that we're slowly starting to get back to at least near normal conditions. I mean, I didn't really word that in the best way possible. Anyways, just to put it all together, the La Nina is making a comeback, and the waters in the Atlantic are slowly starting to cool off. All right, and so for the last part of the update, we're gonna look at our Enzo forecast. This was issued just like a week or so ago, and this basically shows us what the models are saying put together for our climate, basically our climate forecast. So you can see for March we had a 95% chance of an El Nino. That bar significantly drops in April. April will all the way down to a 15% chance, and then La Nina starts to slowly go up. And we get to July here, and by July we will have around 73% chance of a La Nina, and then into August and September, the peak of hurricane season, we will have an 80 to 85% chance of La Nina. That is going to help hurricane season, at least for the Atlantic, and that's just basically something that we have to be concerned about. And if you put that together with the intense sea surface temperatures, which thankfully in the past few weeks have been cooling down, if those waters stay very warm, you may end up with an active hurricane season. But I'm getting tired, so that's all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for Davis joining the show here. But one more thing, Davis, what do you think about this upcoming hurricane season, just based off of what we just looked at with the last two sections of the update?
I mean, it's kind of crazy that I feel like it was like just yesterday that they were talking about, guys, El Nino's coming in, El Nino's coming in, and that phase is already over. Right now, La Nina's coming in, and La Nina does typically last about 3 to 4 years here. That's just like the average overall. That's not any. Honestly, I probably shouldn't even brought that up because I don't know the exact study that was from, but I know that there was some study that did show that. But I don't think that's gonna. Pretty much everybody knows that this hurricane season is likely going to have at least a chance to be pretty far above average to at least what we've had recently here. Obviously, last year was not crazy in terms of the Atlantic hurricane season, but I mean, everything is pointing in this year's favor for the Atlantic hurricane season. I don't know about the Pacific. I feel like that's going to be a little bit on the lower end of things, but if I'm on the East Coast, I'm watching out, right? This is going to be a pretty intense hurricane season, I honestly do believe. Obviously, the sea surface temperatures are not quite warm enough yet to bring any like major hurricane season. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like, but I think those are going to warm up very fast.
Yeah, and like you said, you would be, just watching the tropics on the East Coast. If you don't know already, I live in Western Long Island, guys. I am absolutely freaking out because this hurricane season just looks mad. So I'm gonna be ready, guys. If we get, I swear, if we get like a tropical depression up here, I will at least make one video for you guys, because I've been dying for the past years to just be inside one of these strong tropical storms, or maybe even hurricanes. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. I mean, I'm not even a storm chaser. That's gonna be happening in a few years, hopefully. But I'm telling you guys, if I do get hit by a hurricane or a tropical storm this hurricane season, I will be sure to get you guys at least some footage of just what happens at my house here. All right, that's gonna wrap up the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much once again for Davis joining the show tonight. All right, stay safe. Don't be scared. Be prepared. We do still have to get through tonight and tomorrow with that severe weather event, and then that second low pressure system that's going to be coming in. Watch out for some upcoming severe weather events, like Davis said, into late April. And then I'll continue talking about the Atlantic hurricane season as we approach the first day, which I believe is June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're officially like a month and a half away only. So
Did you see that?
what?
There was like a cloud to ground strike in my back window.
Oh
Anyway,
wow.
sorry.
Anyways, yeah. So we'll continue pumping out these updates. Go subscribe to Davis, and I'll see you guys in the next video.